Imagine discovering a dusty box in an evidence room, pulling out an old reel-to-reel tape from 1973, and realizing that the voice recorded on it belongs to a killer who's been living free for 51 years. That's exactly what happened when cold case detectives in Montgomery County, Maryland reopened one of their oldest unsolved murders. What they found on that forgotten audio recording would finally bring justice to a family that had been waiting for answers since 1971. This is the incredible true story of how a single tape recording solved a murder that everyone thought would remain a mystery forever. On the night of October 23, 1971, James Tappan Hall was working his part-time security job at the Manor Country Club in Rockville, Maryland. Known as JT to his friends and family, the 53-year-old deputy with the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office had grown up in a large Virginia family where public service ran deep. Many of his relatives worked as police officers and firefighters, and Hall was proud to serve his community. But that October night would be his last. As Hall made his rounds through the dark parking lot, he came upon something suspicious. A 19-year-old man had just broken into a nearby home and was trying to reach his getaway car. In the confrontation that followed, Hall was shot and killed. The young man fled the scene, leaving behind a devastated family and a community in shock. Hall's daughter Philo remembers those early days after her father's death vividly. Initially, her family received an outpouring of support with calls, visitors, and help flooding in. But as time passed, the attention faded. The second year was particularly difficult. She found herself constantly wondering where everyone had gone. The investigation into Hall's murder began immediately. But despite their best efforts, detectives struggled to build a solid case. They interviewed numerous people, collected evidence, and even spoke with a young man named Larry David Becker, who they thought might have information about what happened. Investigators recorded that interview on a reel-to-reel tape in 1973. At the time, detectives viewed Becker as someone who might know something about the case, but not necessarily as the actual killer. Without enough evidence to charge him, the case grew cold. The recording was filed away in an evidence box where it would sit untouched for decades. Years turned into decades. Philo Hall moved to Texas with her family, but she never forgot her father. Every 6 months or so, she would call the Montgomery County Police Department's Investigations Division, always asking the same question: had there been any progress? The answer was always the same. No new leads, no arrests, no justice. But Philo kept her father's memory alive in other ways. Every morning, when she walked past his photograph hanging in her front hall, she would kiss her fingers and touch the picture. "Good morning, Dad," she would say with a smile. "I'm still here." As the years went by, similar greetings were added for her mother, who passed in 2005, and her son, who passed in 2007. Then, in 2021, something remarkable happened. Two cold case detectives decided to take a fresh look at James Tappan Hall's murder with new eyes and modern investigative techniques. Sergeant Chris Homrock, head of the Montgomery County Police Department's Cold Case Unit, and Detective Katie Leggett began the painstaking process of going through every piece of evidence in the case. They dug through old case boxes, reading reports and following leads that had long gone cold. That's when they found references to Larry David Becker and discovered something extraordinary. The old reel-to-reel tape from 1973 still existed. The detectives knew they had something potentially significant, but the tape was in an obsolete format that required special equipment to play. They carefully sent the fragile recording to the FBI, where expert technicians converted it to digital form. When they finally listened to what was on that tape, they couldn't believe what they were hearing. Clear as a bell. Detective Leggett would later describe the audio quality. The voice on the tape was discussing details about the shooting that police had never released to the public, including specific information about how many times Hall had been fired upon. This wasn't someone who had heard rumors or read newspaper accounts. This was someone who had been there. This was the killer. Armed with this new evidence, the investigators began to piece together what had happened to Larry David Becker over the past 5 decades. They discovered several crucial facts. First, Becker had grown up near the country club where Hall was killed, giving him local knowledge of the area. Second, he had a criminal history that included burglary, assault, shoplifting, and escape. And third, and perhaps most tellingly, he had changed his name at some point from Larry David Becker to Larry David Smith. Investigators believed this name change was done purposefully to avoid further investigation into his involvement in the murder. The trail led them to Little Falls, New York, where they found 70-year-old Larry David Smith living what appeared to be a quiet life in a 9-story public housing high-rise for older or disabled residents. For half a century, he had lived free while the Hall family mourned and searched for answers. Neighbors in the building were shocked when they learned of the accusations. One resident, 85-year-old June Jones, who lived on the same floor as Smith, told reporters, "To me, that's not Larry." But the evidence told a different story. In September 2022, 51 years after James Tappan Hall was killed, Larry David Smith was arrested and charged with premeditated first-degree murder. Officials discounted his explanation that Hall's death had been an accident. Montgomery County Police Chief Marcus Jones praised the cold case detectives for their remarkable work. To obtain a confession for someone who committed a crime 51 years ago is a tremendous accomplishment, he said at a press conference announcing the arrest. The voice stressed patterns on that old tape, the details only the killer could have known, and the subsequent investigation all pointed to one conclusion. They had finally gotten their man. For Philo Hall, the news brought a mixture of emotions. After 5 decades of waiting, calling, hoping, and remembering her father every single morning, justice was finally within reach. The dedication of those cold case detectives who refused to let her father's murder remain unsolved had given her something she thought might never come: answers. The case serves as a powerful reminder that cold case units play a vital role in our justice system. These dedicated investigators work tirelessly on cases that others have given up on, using new technology and fresh perspectives to re-examine old evidence. The Larry David Smith case also highlights the importance of preserving evidence, even when it seems like a case will never be solved. That reel-to-reel tape sat in an evidence box for nearly 50 years before anyone realized its true significance. Without proper preservation and cataloging, it could have been lost or destroyed. Instead, it became the key piece of evidence that cracked a half-century-old murder case. Experts in law enforcement now emphasize the critical value of recording suspect interviews and preserving those recordings for future analysis. Just as DNA evidence can be stored and re-examined with better technology years later, audio and video recordings of suspects can be analyzed with new techniques that didn't exist when they were first made. Modern voice stress analysis technology, advanced audio enhancement, and simply the fresh perspective of new investigators can reveal truths that were missed the first time around. The story of how a forgotten audio tape solved a 51-year-old murder reminds us that justice may be delayed, but it doesn't have to be denied. Cold case detectives across the country are working right now on cases just like this one, using modern technology to breathe new life into investigations that went cold decades ago. Behind every cold case is a family like the Halls, people who never stopped hoping, never stopped calling, never stopped saying good morning to photographs of loved ones they lost too soon. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss another incredible true crime story. We bring you real cases, real investigations, and real justice, told with the respect and detail they deserve. Like this video if you appreciate the dedication of cold case detectives who refuse to give up, and leave a comment below telling us what other unsolved cases you'd like us to cover. Your engagement helps us continue bringing these important stories to light. Remember, somewhere in an evidence room right now, there might be another piece of evidence just waiting to be rediscovered. Another family waiting for answers, another case waiting to be solved. Stay connected with us as we continue to explore the cases where justice prevailed, no matter how long it took.